Welcome to the studio, Jayden Nikorima.
Yes, g'day. Boys that I lent on were into drugs and alcohol, and then I got caught and I was just thinking in my head, like, what have you done?
It's like a proper path to self-destruction.
You don't need a name to be able to help people. You just gotta have it within yourself to want to do it, and I am who I am today because of their mistake. And it's hard knowing what the issue is and the NRL not doing anything about it till this day.
By helping other people the way you were, you're really helping yourself more than anyone, aren't you?
I'm the biggest winner out of this. Yeah, I'm newborn child, they say. So.
Great Butt Radio, coming through on your wireless.
All right, we're on. Go, Derek.
God, now I'm nervous. Fucking hell. Righto. Welcome back to the Trademark Radio studio. It's been a little while, been a little
hiatus
between drinks.
Has been a long time.
Yeah, we couldn't be luckier to have a better guest in the studio to kick us back off again. Now, this bloke is a famous trademark model, superstar model, in fact. He's played in the NRL. And, Rossi, what's the last point?
Well, the last point was that you were going to make something up that was going to be funny.
The third thing we don't have, but anyway, welcome to the studio, Jayden Nikorima.
Yes, g'day. Thanks for having me, guys.
Mate, pleasure. Bit of a backstory. We were introduced to you through Glenn. Glenn Azar was on our podcast. I reckon it was almost a year to the day we had Glenn on because it was my wedding anniversary, which is next week, and it was that day. I remember talking to Glenn about that, remember? So that's weird. Nearly a year to the day.
Because you were going to get, you were going to go visit the marriage counsellor.
We went to the marriage counsellor for our first wedding anniversary. Fuck, I better book that in for next week.
They're on the rocks.
Better get that checked in. But Glenn was awesome to intro us to you last year, and you came out, you had a chat. Glenn had a chat to our team, and then intro you to us. And mate, it's been awesome. We were in a photo shoot last year with the Wildside, and finally we can get you in here and have a really good yarn. So mate, appreciate the time.
No, mate, Glenn's little apprentice. He's the GOAT. We call him MG down at the gym, Mind Guru. So I'm happy to be here. It's quite funny that it worked out nearly a year in advance too. So
that's awesome. Yeah, well, I suppose your backstory, a lot of people know obviously your last name with your brother that playing now for the Warriors, and you were just in the Warriors system, and we'll talk on that in a bit. But I mean, we'd love to know your background, where you're from originally, and the lead into the NRL and how you got there.
Yeah, sweet. I'm New Zealand born in Palmerston North, but I moved to Australia when I was 8. That was due to Cody's footy career. He got picked up in New Zealand, which is quite odd. Moved to Australia, and then we played footy at Norths Devils, Aspie Devils through our junior footy.
He must have been. How young was he when he got?
He was like 10, 11 or 12.
And
the whole family relocated.
Yeah, so they asked Cody to come to Australia. Mum was sick of Dad in the army, just over it. So Dad's got an army background. Mum was working for the police, answering the 000 calls.
Whoa.
So they're pretty strict parents, tough parents. They've seen everything. But yeah, Mum was over it, so we moved to Australia. Cody made his first rep side at 12 years old, and then got picked up by the Broncos at 12. I was a little bit behind. I got picked up by the Bronx at 15. And then from then on, my footy career just took off. I made Australian schoolboys, Queensland schoolboys. I got signed at 17 into the NRL system straight out of high school. And everything was going gold for me. Signed a big contract at the Bronx as a 17-year-old just for a year. And then I was coming off contract with while playing under 20s as a 17-year-old, which there probably would have been only about 10 boys doing at the time. And I had options. I had about 7 different NRL clubs chasing after me, and myself and Cody were both vying for the 14 position at the Bronx. There would have been about 2 others. Cody was definitely number 1, and then I was a bit below him, and I just thought I don't want to go up against my brother with the same position. Bronx were actually offering me offering me better money than they were offering Cody. So it was kind of funny that they wanted me a bit more than him, but I seen the opportunity at the Roosters to go to the next level. They were offering me the number 6 jersey, and that's what I did. I signed at the Roosters. I debuted the following year as an 18-year-old, played a World Club Challenge, over in England with the Chooks, and my contract there, I signed 3 years as an 18-year-old. I think it was about 700K over 3 years. So, man, I was laughing. it was kind of hectic.
That is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But run us through that, because everyone looks at the Roosters and obviously what they've been through the last couple of years. I'm a mad South fan, so I can't stand the side of Roosters. But, I do, respect them in the sense that they run an amazing outfit. Like Trent Robinson and then and Big Uncle Nick, like how he sort of orchestrates everything in the background. Like, what was the process of them coming, introducing themselves to you and then, bringing you across to the Roosters? What was that like?
Yeah, I got picked up. My manager actually called me and said that Trent Robinson wants to meet you. So they flew me to Sydney. We went to, I forgot the restaurant's called. It was such a nice restaurant, eh? And Trent Robinson just had a one-on-one conversation with me, which no real other clubs had done. It was usually their scouts doing it with you. And Trent pretty much has had, I call it that human connection. Like, he connected with me on different levels, and I was just like, all right, this guy actually does care about me. I'm going to sign there. And the culture there is second to none. The standards that they train to, that they hold themselves to around the club, the respect that you have to have for not just the players, but all the staff, including the marketing team and whatnot. That's why they've won 2-3 trophies in the last 5 years. So
yeah.
They're now one of the best teams in the comp. But when I signed there, they hadn't won a premiership yet. So I was in that building phase, and they lived to a high standard, a standard that I couldn't live up to. I wasn't ready to live up to, and that's where I found myself getting in a bit of trouble there.
As an 18-year-old, you must have, I think back to when I was 18, and when you're 18, you think, you kind of think you're the man. You think you got a mate now, school's over, and, we're ready to go. But getting taken out to a nice restaurant with, the coach of the Roosters and, having it all laid out for you, you must have felt like, you were really up there playing with the big boys very suddenly.
Man, I did. I felt like that when I was at Brizzy. So I was going out with the top Nrl players, State of Origin players. And then when I got the offer to go to the Roosters or 7 other clubs, your head just goes that big. Then you get offered 700K over 3 years. You get the chance to move out of home by yourself into the big world, Sydney. It just got the better of me at the time. And I think any 18-year-old without any support would have gone down the same path that I did.
Well, I know because I'm from Sydney originally, and I know what I got up to in Sydney as a when I was a young apprentice, and I was just on apprentice wages, but going out every, I'm sure you know what it's like. But I certainly didn't have $300,000 in my back pocket, after signing a big contract with.
And they pay you monthly too, because that's a massive sum of money that's coming in every month.
Yeah, monthly. So.
And do they set you up at all, in regards to hey, look, you're an 18-year-old bloke, we're going to be giving you this money. This is how we, this is like a financial advisor we think you should talk to or anything like that? Or is it just, here, mate, you're employed, here's your money, rock up to training and play hard?
Yeah, it's the last bit. They don't really think about that side, the welfare side, how to manage welfare and get on top of it early before there is actually a problem. It would have been nice to actually have that, but I just got thrown all the cash.
And was it what were you was it just in and out? We just partying hard, buying all the toys?
Yeah, well, lucky I've got a mum that loves me.
Yeah.
So she put half the money aside, and then I had half to play with. So I paid my bills straight away.
Yep.
And then it was just playtime. And I still had probably $6,000 to play with a month.
Yeah.
Which is stupid.
You're doing $2,000 a weekend to party. That's you're having a pretty good party every weekend.
Yeah, and that's the main reason why I led down the wrong path. I didn't have any family there. The people that I got injured quite early. I did my hammy about 6 times. Played NRL just after a shoulder recon, and I just had no mojo. Lost the way I play footy. Lost that little 12-year-old kid that everyone. Well, that's the reason why I got signed, because I was just playing footy and I didn't know how to play footy again. So after round 8, I got dropped. Then you add in the injuries. With it, you sort of try to lean on people that care about you. All the people that cared about me were back in Brizzy. So it was just over the phone, and I had to find someone physically to sort of lean on. And the boys that I lent on were into drugs and alcohol. And for me, because I wasn't doing good at rugby league, which is my identity, I sort of try to find people away from rugby league that wouldn't talk about it. And that's the sort of path I went down.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about forgetting how to play, Because I was listening. Have you listened to that Howie Games one with Steve Smith?
Yeah, you sent it through the other day.
Yeah.
I had a little listen to it.
Yeah, Steve Smith talks about how sometimes he'll be batting and he just completely forgets how to hold the bat. Like he's been out.
What is it that I was
he's
always
like, how
doing?
do I? He's like, how do I hold this? And he was talking. Was early in his career, and like Adam Voges was at like the non-strikers end, and he like walks up at the end of the over, and he was like, "Mate, like I've forgotten how to hold the bat." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "I actually don't know where my hands go." And he was just so they ran a Nico pen out and put a line on his like in the web of his glove, and then a line on the bat so he could. And then he was like, "Oh yeah, that's right again." And but to think that could happen to one of the best bats in the world, just forget how to hold his bat.
It's probably also goes to speak to sort of the mind frame, like the headspace that you're in. Sometimes if you're not fully there, you just kind of the feeling also goes. And I think you talk about that feeling of being a 12-year-old, and if the head is not quite where it once was, you just don't feel like the same person that you always were.
Because it can't be a chore, can it? It needs to be fun.
Oh, you've got to actually love the sport to be able to go to the next level. And I did at the time, but when you had obviously injuries and then you add the drugs in as well, that messes with your brain. The sort of endorphins that you get from that I was getting from the drugs was awesome at the time, but the endorphins that I was getting from rugby league were just so low, so you sort of obviously want to go to when you're feeling at your best. And unfortunately for me, it was at that time taking drugs.
Yeah, sorry, you go.
Well, I mean, it's not uncommon, right? The challenges that you probably face then are not uncommon for any young bloke or any young person really at all to go through that kind of stuff. It's probably the difference is that you're a bit more in the limelight. You've probably got a whole lot of cash and you've got a whole lot of expectation on your shoulders as well. Like, did you know that you were going down a negative path, or at the time did you think you had it all in control?
Nah. So for me, I got away with everything during school. When I was younger, I went to a school where, because I was good at rugby league, there were no consequences for me. And I lived through that through my whole footy career. I remember one time I was playing 20s for the Bronx, still a 17-year-old, and there was about 12 of us. We went out in Townsville. Everyone got in trouble but me because I was a 17-year-old and they didn't want to ruin their name. So I got away with that. So here I am taking drugs and alcohol on a big contract without any consequences in my past. So I just thought, man, I'm bulletproof. I'll get away with it. And I got my first strike in June, and that's just a slap on the wrist pretty much. I walked into the office of the CEO at the Roosters, and he just goes to me, "It's just you and I that know. The coach doesn't know. The players don't know. You'll have to do 12 sessions with this doctor, and then that's it. If you get another strike within 3 years, that's your second strike, and we'll be having another meeting. But if not, then the first one gets wiped away." And I remember I walked out of the office and I seen Trent Robinson. And he just had a normal conversation with me, nothing. I was probably shitting myself. And because he brushed it aside, I was like, oh, I've gotten away with another thing. And 4 months later, I get done with my second strike and end up in court because I lied about it.
And obviously you got to keep up that lie to your teammates. Like, did you tell anyone? I mean, surely some people would have known, right? Like,
yeah, a few players knew just because we were on it together, and one of the other boys got caught for the first strike. But yeah, for the second one, I knew that I was in trouble. So for your second strike, if you get caught, you either get a 12-match suspension and the club keeps you, or they rip your contract up. Now, I wasn't offering anything to the club. I was injured. I played about 2 games. And then outside of that, I wasn't giving back to anyone. So I knew that they were going to rip my contract up. At that time, too, I was talking to Bronx. I was a bit homesick. Wanted to come back home, and I was about to sign like a 2-year contract with Brizzy, so I pretty much lost about over $1 million just over a mistake.
Far out. So what was that? So that second time, so obviously it's like I'm assuming it's like a piss test or whatever, right?
Yeah, piss.
And so they've called you in and you're like, holy fuck, I'm done here. And then what was the mindset?
You must have been shitting yourself going in there, what?
Yeah, well, we had our Mad Monday. I would have gone for 3 days, but for us, we know that the drugs stay in your system for 2 to 3 days. I got tested 3 days later. I had trained within that 3 days, so I thought I was sweet. I was stressing a little bit, so I was like asking one of the boys if he could do it for me, but then I was like, nah, just do it. If you get caught, who cares? Wasn't really thinking about it. I think at the time I was just over footy as well, so I was like, oh man, like it's nothing. If I get caught, I get caught. And then I got caught, and I was just thinking in my head, like, what have you done? Like, you've just thrown away X amount of money, you're going to have to tell your mum, your dad that you're taking drugs, and they're fully against drugs and alcohol. They've seen it all.
They probably think you're perfect as well, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like, especially mum, being a mummy's boy, like, he never gets in trouble. And then, yeah, all these things were going through my brain. How can I get away with it? And I just decided to lie about it. I messaged one of the boys. So I got caught playing cup, and I messaged one of the boys in the cup team to take the fall because I knew that the NRL wouldn't like go to a cup team. They'd kind of hopefully just brush it aside. Yeah, someone spiked his drink. We'll give his contract back and then move on. Put it on a stat deck, and then I ended up going through court for like 2 years. The guy that said he spiked my drink came out and was just brutally honest. He said, I didn't do it. I got made to do it. And unfortunately for him, he got in trouble as well for trying to cover me, which it sort of, yeah, sucks for him that I put him through that as well. But for myself, I ended up in like a magistrate court, cost me over an extra $20,000, couldn't play footy for 2 years. So I proper lost all my identity as a rugby league player. And for what made me happy was drugs and alcohol, I just dove deeper into that issue. I got done drink driving, high range during that time, lost my license over a 12-month period, and I proper hit rock bottom.
Just a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Vicious cycle.
It's like a proper path to self-destruction.
Oh, and it's all, I've only got myself to blame, and hindsight's obviously a beautiful thing. I can look back on it now and be so appreciative of it. But if I had gotten away with the second strike, if he, the guy that said he spiked me, if we both got away with that, then I wouldn't have learned anything. I would have been 25 now, would have had an extra mil, but I would have had a bigger drug problem, a bigger issue, and I probably would have lost my family.
So I suppose what you've gone through, I mean, it's pretty unique because the lies kind of sort of, snowballed really and created a pretty bloody big issue there.
Yeah.
So there's probably a good lesson there. But do you see, I suppose you would see a lot of this sort of similar kind of behaviour, in footy teams that you played for and in the NRL, and, potentially other people who get through and maybe don't have such severe consequences as what you went through at the time?
Yeah, I see it all the time, and I look at them, and sometimes I just want to pull them up and just tell them, this is why we're teaching you. But these kids will only take in what they want to take in sometimes, and I can tell my story to them numerous amount of times, but if they don't want to listen, they won't listen. So they just have to go through their own lessons to be able to learn as well. But that's sort of why we run these camps for 11 to 17-year-olds, which we'll get into, while we talk to other footy clubs and while we're big on going into schools, because I think for me the biggest problem is taking accountability straight away. Yeah. I feel like, especially as kids, you sort of look to elsewhere to blame. If we can get these kids to start taking accountability, if I took accountability of my actions on the first strike or the second strike, none of the rest would have happened. And that's where I think the biggest issue is.
Absolutely.
You talk about your family, and I know you're a strong family man. I've heard you talk about it before, but I can kind of relate, not to the same level, but I mean, I got caught by a sniffer dog at Good Vibes Festival in Sydney when I was 19 years old with a few pills in my pocket. And I didn't tell Mum. I could not tell Mum. If Mum found out, that's my life over. So I didn't, but I told my brothers, and they were helping me manage this situation or whatever. Yeah. Until Maroubra Police Station sent a letter home to my house, and Mum called me and she's like, "What's this letter from Maroubra Police? What the fuck's going on, Daniel? You better tell me everything right now." And I was like,
"You're not a bra boy, eh?"
Completely freaked out. Don't think I went home for 3 days, but I was like, it was the most shame I've ever felt in my life. I was like, how I've let my family down. My mum, she's a single mother. She's worked so hard, and here I am as a 19-year-old. My life's over. How am I gonna come back from this? The shame that you felt. Can you describe that? How much did that weigh on you?
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. So when I found out the second strike, I knew that I had to fly back to tell Mum and Dad, just because I don't want them to find out in the media. Oh. I get back into Brizzy, tell Mum in the car, and she's absolutely distraught, crying on the way home. And then I was like, how do I tell Dad? She just goes, when you get home, just tell him. And I was driving home. We would have been about 20 minutes from home, and we get this phone call from Dad. And he goes, he called Mum, He goes, "Are you with Jayden?" And he goes, "Yep." And he goes, "Bring him home." And I like knew at that point he must have found out.
Fuck.
And I was like, "Fuck!" And I walked in, and he goes, "What is this?" And showed me the Facebook post of me, like Nikorima gets done second charge, and I was just like, "Fuck!" Like, one, I stuffed up because I've taken the drugs, but two, he's found out over social
Secondhand.
media, and not from me, the source. So that sort of hurt more, and it was a bit more shameful. But just to see Dad crying in tears instead of like coming from our background, we're used to getting hiding. So I remember before I got out of the car, I put on 3 jumpers, just getting ready, just getting prepared to get hit, because like that's the easy option for us. Like we like physical stuff, so I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna hit here." But he just broke down crying, and just to see Dad's disappointment, Mum obviously in tears. I don't think they could have spoken to me for like 3 days, just because I just put them through hell. Like I didn't just disappoint them, like I disappointed our name. Cody's obviously in the limelight too, and he would have gone through a bit around the NRL system as well. So
Mate,
they must have just they would have felt like they failed as parents or something. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's what parents all do. They think it's all their fault.
What have we done?
What have we done to make this happen?
Yeah, Mum actually said that as well.
But in reality, it's not. They can't control everything. You know what I mean?
Well, it's just like what you just said before. Like every story you tell to the 10 to 17-year-olds that come through the system you guys have got going now, it's unless they listen and take it on board, they're still going to make the same mistake. So it's no matter how much you say to anyone or do anything. I think it all comes back down to everyone's got to learn the lesson themselves in one way or another, of what severity.
And that's the biggest thing. Like I say that as well. Like we go out and do a bit of talking now, as do you. And you can preach, you can say, you can shout from the rooftops, but I also think people have got to make their own mistakes. And like...
Yeah, well, all knowledge is, it's most of the things that we do in life is through things that we've made mistakes in and changed the way we operate. You know what I mean? Like no matter how many people come out and say, people still make the same mistakes all the time.
So I want to ask you, because I remember what I was saying when I got in trouble and I thought my life was over. The period of time after that, when it's you've come out with it, it's already out in the open, and everyone starts to heal. How did that look for you? Because I think there's a lot of young blokes and a lot of people out there who, feel the shame of mistakes they've made and don't like to take ownership of it out of fear of,
Yeah, but I think it was still, like the vicious cycle was still going for a while though, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did, how long until we got to...
So straight after I went back home, I got done drink driving. I had nothing. I dove deeper into the drugs and alcohol. And it would have lasted about 2 years. I just gave up on life pretty much, and I was...
What were you doing? Were you working?
Wasn't working at all. I was just living at home. So I bought a house when I was 18, and Mum and Dad were pretty much just paying the mortgage off while I was living there. I did study a Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, which I'm so grateful for now, because that's the sort of field I went into. But I gave up on life. I didn't want to be there, and I was at a point where I wanted to actually kill myself. I remember talking to my little brother about it, and it would have been probably 2 days before. I was in bed and I was just crying, and I just think to myself bro, just get in the car, just drive, and just smash into a pole.
Wow,
you've lost everything. You've embarrassed your family. You've lost.
How old were you here?
Would have been 20. 20 years old. Lost the contract. I just felt like I had nothing. I felt like a ghost, pretty much. Wasn't allowed to play rugby league. Wasn't even allowed to train with a rugby league club because my thing was still going through court, and I didn't know if I was going to jail or not. And I'd rather be dead than go to jail. So that was just my mindset at the time, and so grateful I had a chat to my little brother, which is kind of funny because I'm supposed to be the one looking after him. And
see the one doing the YouTube videos?
Yeah, the
Mate,
YouTuber.
I checked it out, man. He's great. How good are they?
He's the man. But yeah, just talking to him, he broke down crying when I told him just because I can't lose you. And he sort of went through a bit of a phase. So he came out last year being gay, and I was the one. I was the one he lent on to. So I think just having that brotherly love sort of got us both through our hard times.
So that conversation with him was a turning point for you?
Yeah, definitely.
So what was the next steps after that?
I went into my cert. I finished my Cert 3, so I reached out to a guy named Mark, and he helped me at Fitstop, getting a job. But I think 2 weeks after that chat was when I met Glenn, and that was for our footy camp. I was playing. It was my first year back at the Dolphins, so I would have been training there for 4 weeks. We went into an army camp, and Glenn Azer was there, and I rocked up eating half a tub of ice cream just because I'd still given I had still given it up on rugby league, but it was still my.
You were
identity.
there at the camp eating the ice cream.
On the way to the camp, just eating ice cream. I was just
What time?
What
Is it
ice
early in the
cream?
morning?
No, what ice cream,
Nah.
importantly.
Cookies and cream. had to be. It was just before the start of it, and obviously, like I said, I'd given up on life. I'd given up on rugby league, but it was still my identity. I was still good at it, and a part of me still wanted to get back in the NRL. I just didn't know how to, and I thought, well, everyone was telling me that like it was gone.
So you were getting told to give up.
Wasn't getting told to give up, but like the way that people were communicating to me, it's like, mate, like it's gone. Like you won't be able to get another contract now. And I felt like that too, just because.
Is that because people think you're too much of a risk?
Too much of a risk. You're known as the party boy, and I was just living like that, like week in, week out. Even the night before that camp, I was probably out on the piss as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get to the camp with a pretty shit attitude, sit at the back. Didn't really want to partake into the camp. Glenn goes through all the mindset stuff, and he said two things that really like resonated with me. The first one was everyone wants to be a beast until it's time to do what real beasts do. Now for me, I wanted to get back into the NRL. I still want to be a good person, but I'm still out taking drugs, taking alcohol, and I want to be like a big dog, but I'm just being a little pup pretty much. And I was just thinking to myself, far out, like that resonates with me. That's me. And then 2 minutes later, I'm still like half daydreaming in and out, and he speaks about his son. Now Christian is 17. I think he just turned 17, but he's got the brain capacity of like a 8-9-year-old now, and he can't do the things that we're allowed to do. Like it's a privilege to play rugby league. He can't play sports, and then Glenn, as a father, can't take his son to like any sport as well. Can't even take him to like a normal school. He has to go to a disability school in Aspley. And for me, my dad took me everywhere. He took me to footy trainings, helped coach my team, and did all these things. And here I am being disrespectful to him by not giving my best effort, by going behind his back line. And then from that camp onwards, we went into like a physical little activity, and I just put 100% in.
Wow, it's like a massive turning point.
Just that little mindset mixed with the physical component, and then feeling good the next day after like finishing it, accomplishing it. I just reached out to Glenn afterwards, and I was like, mate, like I've spoken to psychologists, I've been in touch with doctors just to help my mental state, everything, and what you've done in less than it was 16 hours, like I can resonate with you. Can you help me? And he just said yes. And I was thinking to myself, like, how much do I have to pay this guy to actually help me? But he goes, mate, you remind me a bit of my daughter. She's one that climbed Mount Everest. She's a high performer, and I know you've got that in you, so I'll help you for free just to get you back on track. But just one rule, don't lie to me. And I was just like, fuck, like this is easy. But but if you look at my past, it's not, because I just lied all the time. And the first thing he said was, when was the last time you took drugs? And it would have been like 2 months before that camp. Oh, probably like 2 weeks before that camp. Told him that, and then we just moved forward from then, and here I am now.
Wow, that's incredible, isn't it?
And I know how much, like talking to Glenn, how much he's talked about you before, and how
you've done a lot for him.
I think
too,
you've done a lot for him as well, because I mean, obviously, you are. You've like a little protege, like Glenn's little project or something. You know what I mean? But like you've reached out to him and asked for help, and I think there's a lot of power in that about the fact that you did just balls up and reach out and ask for help. And anyone who asks for help of anyone, it's rare that you get a no when you like genuinely just want a hand. And he's said, yeah, mate, come on, let's go.
I don't know why I was so scared. Like, I think because I was feeling so low and just asking, like, there's probably anyone that goes through depression and whatnot, but it's just hard making that leap just to talk about it and get off your shoulders. But once you do, man, I had the whole world off my shoulders. And then once I took accountability for what I had done and just accepted the fact that that was me, but that isn't me, and I'm not my mistakes, then I could move forward.
Yeah. But, I mean, the other interesting thing is, too, I was talking to my sister's boyfriend about this the other night. It's sort of like people that have got like a major addiction to something. They can't erase the addiction. They can just erase what they're addicted to and just change it for something else. So like, is it the same for you? Like you just threw yourself into like so much physical activity and being on the camps and doing that stuff with Glenn. Like you just swapped going out and partying, taking drugs on the weekends to going and thrashing yourself in the gym, doing more podcasts. You know what I mean? Like you just addicted yourself to something else. Is that how you feel?
I think that is right. And what I did was I changed my surroundings. And we talk about like you are the 4 people you hang around with. So if you hang around with 4 people that take drugs, alcohol, you're more inclined to become the 5th. And I started hanging out with Brody, Zaya, Glenn, people who like work in the gym, who love challenges, who always go out of their comfort zone. And man, I was running half marathons, and I ran a marathon. Then I was doing charity work, and I was getting the same feeling from helping other people and doing that than I would on a 3-day bender, and just changing that. Finding out what my purpose was is in life, and for me, I love helping other people. Yeah. Once I got a hold of that, like my life just went.
Did your parents, like when you so I suppose Glenn became your mentor, and sort of coach and a range of other things, but did you introduce him to your family? Yeah,
I did. I think the first time we introduced him was when myself and Glenn did a podcast on his Building Better Humans one. And it was a 2-piece part where I just spoke about my story, and it was the first time I actually took ownership. Told my story.
That's right. It was in the paper as well.
Yeah,
I remember.
And then on the second part, he got my family in to talk about what they went through as parents, because that's always important for them, and just to show other parents that it's normal. Anything can happen to your kid. Like we come from I call it a perfect family, and I obviously tarnished or went down the wrong path, which no one thought was possible. And from that, Mum and Dad met Glenn, and till this day we're forever grateful for what Glenn has done for me, but also my family now, because Mum's training at the gym with us.
Is she?
At Project.
Awesome.
Dad comes every Saturday as well, and I got like my whole family there. So
do you train them?
Yeah, I train them.
You flog them?
I flog them.
Yeah. Did your old man come in wearing 3 hoodies?
Yeah. But when we were younger, Dad used to touch us up, make us run around the block. So whenever I get the chance to make him do extras, I make him do extras.
It was interesting you're saying before that the charity work and stuff like that, helping other people, has been really good for you. I'm reading a book at the moment. It's called The Book of Joy. It's like this guy, he followed the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of South Africa, around for this speaking event. And they talked exactly about that, like what brings people joy is like inner happiness, but then also being generous and helping other people is what, it's nothing material. And it was even we were on a talk yesterday with Alice Payne from QUT at the Queensland Museum.
We were on part of a panel recorded with the ABC, right, on the subject of the psychology of fashion. We're 2 tradies.
An interesting thing that Alison said was that there's when someone does buy something new, the research has come out that the feeling and the euphoria of that, your euphoric feeling, is gone within one day, Whereas when you're going out and you're helping people and you're bringing yourself inner happiness and joy by helping other people rather than materialistic stuff, it has a longer lasting effect literally on how you are as a person, which is incredible. And if you don't really understand that until you go out and do it, I suppose. And you wouldn't have ever thought that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, just be like, I don't want to go fucking help anyone.
I didn't think I was capable. Like, I didn't feel like, even when I was in the NRL and I sort of had a name for myself, I still at that time didn't think I had the right sort of aura to be able to help other people. And man, you don't need a name to be able to help people. You just gotta have it within yourself to want to do it. And once I got that want to actually be able to help people, I just want more.
That's cool. So what when you linked up with Glenn, what did it actually look like? So he's like, right, this is what we're going to do. This is what, your new schedule looks like. You're going to be in the gym this much. Like, how did he sort of lay it out for you once you'd sort of agreed that you were going to go down this path?
No, so he got me to, we did this card, not game, but sort of task thing that he wanted to find out what my core values were. It was a card, there's like about 100 cards in there, and then they all mean like different things: family, friends, adventure, you name it. And then once I nailed down my top 10, he could figure out what sort of person I was, and how he could help me. My first 3 were adventure. I liked adventuring, which he's
He's a big fan of.
He's got a dedicated vehicle for it as well.
Yeah. Family was the second one, and I think something to do with training was the third one. So it sort of aligned with what
He just built it all out of that. Yeah.
And then from then he just got me in. He actually got me in at 5 o'clock in the morning, like for the first 5 sessions that we did, just to see if I was committed to it. And then once he seen that I was committed to it, he put it all on the table for me and helped me out that way.
So what everyone goes and tries, when you've got that mindset shift and you're like, righto, fuck, I'm going to go start exercising tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like you start and then you get into it and then you're like, oh, I stayed up a bit late last night. Fuck, the alarm's going to 4:30.
It'll be all right if I don't go today.
I just won't go today. Has there been a period when you started with Glenn where you're like, well, fuck, this is a big commitment. I'm probably a little bit over it. Can I, have you ever had a second thought, or has it just been like into it the whole time?
I've been into it the whole time, mate. Like one of the first things that he did to me was we set out like a 12-month plan, a goal. Then like you break it down 9 months, 6 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
And then you go weekly. Each week you set out non-negotiables that'll lead you to your 12-month goal. So each week I was doing things sort of out of my comfort zone that were different, that would push me there too. And I was uncomfortable sometimes. Like I remember one of them, I had to wake up at 5 o'clock every morning and run like 3K just as like a little mental but physical challenge. And for me, it wasn't physically challenging as such. It was more getting up at 5 a.m.
It's definitely the mental side, isn't it? Doing a 3K
running.
run is more mental than physical.
Yeah.
For sure, I reckon.
It's putting your shoes on.
Mate, it's getting out of bed and like, because last year, same thing, I went through like a massive big stage. It was like sort of a 3 months I was off the grog, and it was the same thing. Like I substituted having a drink to going to the gym. You know what I mean? Like just did the exact opposite. And I went away for a week, went down to Canberra, just catch up with my grandparents, and it was like literally fucking 1 degree, and I was like, well, I've got to go. Like I've got to get up and go. And it was just like running around. But it was the mental state. It wasn't the run that was hard. It was the mental state of getting out in this freezing cold weather. In fact, running around Canberra in pitch black at like 5 o'clock in the morning, you know? Like that's the hard bit.
I do heaps of stuff that play with anyone's mental state at that time. And like I have cold showers every morning. I've been doing it for the last 2 years. Sometimes I like set my goal or non-negotiable to read 10 pages for the whole week, and it seems easy, but like getting home at 8 o'clock, you're like, oh, I'd rather be on Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
Like just doing things that you don't want to do. There's heaps of non-negotiables that I set just to train my mind to be better. So then when I do get fortunate to do things that I like I don't take it for granted. Because I feel like when I was younger, I took heaps for granted.
Yeah. So are you still off the piss, or do you still drink grog, or?
I still drink every now and then, but me and my missus now we have a bet. Whoever drinks first this year is $500. So
you're just knocking a cave.
Oh no, I don't think I lost to her yesterday in bowling, but I haven't lost to her since, and she knew that too. So she's like, if there's gonna be one thing that I can beat you in, it'll be this. And I'm like, no, you won't. You won't beat me. I'm too competitive.
Tell me about the cold showers. Are you, because like in winter as well, you're on?
Yeah.
How long?
Well.
How long are you in for?
Before work, usually like up to a minute, 2 minutes, but I like.
Are you sudding right up? You just wetting yourself.
You just gotta go head first, straight in, and just stand there.
So no, you don't even like to start with the hot, then turn it to cold.
Nah.
That last little squirt of cold water, got it.
I did that first, and one of the boys, Ben Shea, he's been a massive help for me too. Glenn's helped him as well. He sort of started the cold shower thing within our group, and I started with hot and then went cold, and was telling him, he goes, mate, that's not cold.
Yeah, it's pathetic.
You got to go full cold. And I was like, yeah, like, you're right. That's
full on. So let's talk about, obviously, because I was talking to Glenn when, this transition period was happening with you, because he rang us up and said, I've done this thing with the Redcliffe Dolphins. I've had this bloke reach out. It's been incredible.
That was literally when he came on our podcast, wasn't it? It
was just after, because we had moved into here. And I remember Glenn ringing me and being like, this is what's happened. It's like, because he said it was funny, the coaches at Redcliffe were like, because apparently they weren't going. Yeah. And they were like, do this camp. We don't want any of this airy-fairy bullshit. Just get into these blokes. And Glenn was like, yeah, righto. And they did all the airy-fairy stuff. And he was like, the coaches, you must have had a WhatsApp with all the team. And they were like rang Glenn up and was like, "What have you done with these blokes? Like they've completely changed. Like they're completely different people." And he's like, "Oh, I put all that airy fairy shit in there that you didn't want me to do." And and then said that you'd reached out, and he said, like, we're gonna get this bloke back in the NRL. Like, fuck, that's my goal. Like, I'm gonna get this bloke back playing footy and rebuild this guy, And let's talk about what happened like end of last year at the New Zealand Warriors and that whole that whole thing that happened end of last year. I'd love to know more on that process and how that all came to be.
I still get goosebumps talking about it, just because it was such a long process, like over 3-4 years of me rebuilding, finding myself, and then becoming the best person that I could be. And for me, it wasn't always about rugby league. It was about what can I do outside of rugby league that'll help my career in league if it did eventuate. And I was fortunate enough to have a good life outside of rugby league, working with Glenn, having that smile on my face that was lost for 3 years. And by doing that, my rugby league just skyrocketed back to where I was. So I had that 12-year-old kid back in me. Now I had six injuries over the 2-3 year period as well, and I was still smiling, which was kind of weird too. Like I was like, man, I shouldn't be feeling this happy, but I was. And because I was helping other people outside of rugby league, and I was doing all this good stuff, I think the Warriors seen that, and I hadn't played a footy in like 12 months, and they gave me an opportunity to go to the Warriors, to go to New Zealand for a preseason. And I went to New Zealand in November, I think it was, or maybe December. It was a week after our modelling photo
That's
shoot.
right, yeah.
And I had the time of my life. I got back into a system where, like, I think they sort of take for granted a little bit. Like, there's ice bars, there's hot colds, something that I had to pay a membership for here in Brizzy. The training plan's all done. It's all specific to rugby league. I was doing my own training and sort of picking out different things from different trainings that you see on podcasts and YouTube. And just, the whole feeling of being an NRL player again was, something that I missed. Something that I really want to get back into. And unfortunately for myself, I did my shoulder again. Now, I sort of knew that I had a bit of a tear in it before I went over, but just the opportunity to go over there. And I didn't go over there just for rugby league. I went over there purposely to see what the younger boys are doing and see how I can help them not make the same mistakes as me. So
that's pretty cool.
When I flew over
there wouldn't be many NRL players that give a fuck about what younger players are,
When I flew over there, I could have moved in with my auntie and uncle, but I decided to move into the Warriors house where there was 6 younger boys living, so then I can see what they do day in, day out, how they live, what they eat, what time they wake up, how much sleep they get, just so I can help out, because I've obviously walked the path before, and I know what to do. So if I could help them in some way, then I would. And it was obviously awesome living with them, helping them out. And then by me doing that, I obviously I had my shoulder surgery, so I had to fly back, lost my training trial contract. But they sort of gave me another contract where I can help all the young boys here in Brisbane, because we're about 8 of them had to fly over to play junior footy here. So the opportunity worked out in my favour. I'm still in connection. I sort of contract with the Warriors, just helping out the younger boys, and it's sort of the path that I want to go down in the future as well, sort of the welfare side of things.
Absolutely, that's awesome.
That was something I heard when I heard you on the radio with Nrl the other day, and was so interesting to hear you say that you went over there with the intention to help other people, but what not many people are talking about is that by helping other people the way you were, you're really helping yourself more than anyone, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm the biggest winner out of this. Like, people always look at the other people that you're helping are the winners, but for me, I get something out. I get more out of it than what they would get out of it.
Go on.
I was just going to say, how much had it changed? Obviously, it's a different club, completely different country, but like, how different was it compared to when you were in the Roosters system, 3 or 4 years ago, compared to what you went into the Warriors over the Christmas period? It
was so different. The fact that I was more grateful to actually be there. Like, I soaked up every minute. I was probably one of the first ones to get in, but one of the last ones to get out. When I was at the Roosters, I didn't really care. I just wanted to get out. I just wanted to spend my money on different things. I wanted to have fun. getting drunk. So I think just the whole mindset of why I was there, who I can help, and just the name that I was representing. Like it sort of meant more to me now at the Warriors than when I was at the Roosters.
From a culture standpoint, like, do you think that there are a lot of NRL players and stuff now that are still, partying a lot, or do you think the culture's changing? Like, is it so professional that, there's barely any time for them to be going out and partying anyway? Or do you think there's still a fair bit that goes on? Like, what is it?
Mate, it depends if Fisher is involved or Byron Bay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, obviously at the end of the season, people are fucking letting their hair down. But I mean, like, during the season, like, the level of professionalism, because I assume that, especially now with COVID, everyone that's still playing sport is very fortunate, you know what I mean, to think that they're still employed and there's actually a game that can be played. So, like, has it become a lot more professional people, like, jumping on these opportunities more, or are there still people that, sort of take the piss?
Yeah, see, when I was at the Warriors, like, their culture, they don't really have a drinking culture, and I guess that's because that's just where they come from. They're real family-orientated.
Yeah.
But I can't speak on the other 15 clubs. Like, I wasn't really around it. During COVID, I was out doing challenges and sort of not hanging around the rugby league crowd. Now, there's definitely your good eggs in every workplace.
Yeah.
But there are a few the bad eggs too. And I think if we can teach the young kids the right way to do, and if I can tell my story, if other people through the NRL can tell their story that have been through a bit of hardship, like your Ben Barbers, your Carmichael Hunts, I think we'll have less of the young ones making mistakes. But
yeah, it's tough. And you look at guys like Ben Barber and Carmichael Hunt, two blokes with the most amount of natural talent you'd ever come across. Like, they say Carmichael could have played basketball for Australia and stuff. Like, the guy's just a complete freak. How hard is it, looking at those blokes and being like, fuck, all we needed to do was this? Like, is it hard for you looking at those blokes and seeing what they've lost?
It is, and it's hard, like, knowing what the issue is and the NRL not doing anything about it till this day.
Yeah.
There's still no real, like, they've put money into welfare, the sort of depression side of things, but, like, it's when they get to that point. What are we doing now to help prevent them from getting to that point? And there's no mindset training within NRL clubs. There's no financial support, like,
which is really surprising.
Which is
really, really surprising, and especially even, post, you'd think that there'd be an obligation from those clubs to, and this is not me saying, like, fuck, they need to be doing this. I'm just saying I'm surprised that they don't. For you, like, you were suicidal after losing your job.
It's the same thing.
You know what I mean?
We've talked about it, like, it's the same thing before with young people going into the mining industry or, whatever other industry, that is high paying. When you go from sort of zero to hero and you just all of a sudden got a massive disposable income with not much education on how to, use it wisely. It's across the board. It's probably not just the NRL.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm saying, like, these guys are in the spotlight. It must be, and I don't know, like, the decisions that people make to go to different clubs, you'd think they'd be trying to do a bit more of that to entice more talent to come. Be like, look, we just don't give a fuck about you rocking up and training and playing hard on the weekend. We care about, all these other things.
But if you said to a 20-year-old, oh no, you were 18 when you got your... Yeah.
18.
So if you said to an 18-year-old, we'll give you, in Watson's Bay or wherever you were, we'll give you this massive contract, come play for the club, and we'll also put you through a financial management course. Is an 18-year-old going to jump at that? Do they even know what no,
but I think it's more like, because they talk, this stat is wrong, whatever I say here, but it's like the NFL.
Don't quote.
The NFL, it's something like 80 or 90% of all NFL players are fucking completely broke within 5 or 6 years after they retire. And they're, like, on massive money, like hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're all flat fucking broke.
It's all relative, though, because you're spending your money in the same sort of ratio as what you've sort of earned. You're playing with the big boys, you want the cars.
And that's what I mean. Whereas if you could be like, we're going to do these strategic things, set you up. Yeah, you're not going to have as much cash on you now, but I can guarantee you by the time, like, if you have a, 3, 4, 5 year career, you're going to save you this much money. Like, you'll be set right up.
I think, they just need a financial planner, just to tell the players, like, how much they're earning, what they can save at the end of this year to put them in a position to reach or to buy a house or to do what they want to do.
Do you think it's a bit fucking what he's got and what he's doing? Because, like, if you're playing at the Roosters, you got James Tedesco's on $1 million a year, and then you've got, the younger guys that are coming through on a couple of $100,000, but they're all like, if they're all in the circle together, going out, hanging out, like James Tedesco might be spending $500 or $600, just for a meal out somewhere in Double Bay, and the younger guys like, oh fuck, we've got to try and keep up here. Do you think there's any of that?
I think there would be, but that's where the mindset sort of training comes in hand.
Yeah.
Like goal planning.
Yeah.
What you need to do to reach that. Like
also, what's the average lifespan of an NRL player?
40
in rugby league.
It's something like 48 games or something. It's 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
It's just less than 2 seasons.
So that's kind of fuck all, really. If you
the average NRL player gets 48 games.
I suppose if you were to map out at the start, look, your best case scenario, you might be here for 2 years. You might be able to earn this much money. This is what you can do. When you start to get some realistic numbers around it, maybe it might start to shake things up a bit.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Do you look at where you were and where you are now, and you think about what you went through, and that if you hadn't have gone through any of that stuff, you wouldn't be the bloke you are now? Like, do you think about that?
It definitely wipes away any sort of anger that I would have had for losing all that kind of money. Any sort of regrets, they're out the window now, just because I am who I am today because of their mistakes. But I will be like a better person, and now I can impact a lot more people and have a lot more influence than what I would have had if I didn't make the mistakes.
Sorry, you go.
Well, I just think, it's so common. I mean, we hear stories of 20-year-olds. It seems to be like 20-year-old blokes seem to have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they need to be everything to everyone. And if they're not, the sense of shame that comes with that is sort of, it's ridiculous. But the reality is that at 20, you're just a baby, and you need to make mistakes to figure out, who you are, where you're going, and what you're going to do. And without making those mistakes, you can actually come back from, some of the worst mistakes and be a far better person for it, or what?
100%. Like, I thought I was my mistake. So because I got done with drugs and alcohol, I just thought, well, that's me now. Like, that's me for the rest of my life. And until I met
that's
Glenn,
my identity, who I am.
Yeah. Until I met Glenn, and he told me, mate, you aren't your mistakes. Like, you might be labelled as this all over. Like, you looked my name up on the website on anything, it was like Jayden done with drugs, Jayden drink driving. And that's just who I thought I was. But until I changed who I was and started posting differently on social media, me running marathons and all that stuff, like, then people started to catch on. And funny story, my manager actually messaged me probably about 3 weeks into me making the change and goes, mate, is everything all right with you? And it's kind of weird. Like, just because I was posting all that party boy stuff, like, that's who everyone thought I was. Yeah. And the minute I changed, like, someone thinks something's wrong. So
did you lose? Oh, well, I assume you've probably lost mates that you didn't need. You know what I mean? They're probably bringing you down by the transition you've had. And what was that process like?
Yeah, I wouldn't really say lost mates. Like, some of my mates actually came with me.
Oh, great!
And
how
changed
that?
Their life, which meant a lot to me. I had family members changing their life. One of my uncles was lost like 30 kilos. He's the one that helped me run the charity. So we ended up running 118k. For this young boy, Hendrix, he had a brain tumor at 8 years old. And my uncle would have been 150 kilos then. So him moving 118k was a massive challenge over 24 hours, but he got through it. And by him doing that, like, it inspired me to push further and head towards that NRL goal. And
that's really cool. That's really cool. Bringing people along with you, fuck, that's awesome.
We should have a quick yarn about, because this is the really cool stuff from what I've seen, is everything that you guys are doing now with, I can see you're wearing your Bro Chat t-shirt, which is cool, and I'm thinking here this is hilarious because there's 3 young blokes with hair, and then there's one bloke without hair, which is
He's got hair, but it's on the bottom side of his head. It's on his chin.
Which is hilarious. Good one, Glenn. No, but the stuff that you're doing with with youth development now is really, really cool with both boys and girls. I'd love to hear more about that, because I was watching a video that Glenn put together from one of the most recent ones you did, and all the young fellas were going for a run, and you were down on the grass talking to them afterwards, and there were a mix of natural athletes and not natural athletes. I think your message was, you're all spread apart. Is that what a team does? The rest of you guys who are, up the front, who are natural athletes, you guys should be working together as a team and helping these other guys get through, because that's what a team does. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the camps you've been doing.
Man, it was awesome, mate. So these camps, obviously for me, I made my mistakes. Well, my big mistakes were a reflection of what I did during school. The consequences that weren't handed to me during school, which led to me obviously getting done with the drug thing. And our big emphasis now is on the 11 to 17-year-olds. Our society it's shit these days. Like it's so much harder for them. You got social media, you got people clearing the pathway for you, and I feel like there's no harsh consequences now just because, man, if you smack a kid and you're their parent, like you could go to jail these days. Like it's just like no one gets smacked these days, so it's so much harder for us or like parents just to put these kids into line. So that's why we focus on these young kids, and it's pretty much just to empower them, just to tell them that they are leaders. I feel like nowadays parents sort of try to control their kids to an extent, and if they're not controlling them, they're clearing the path, and then kids sort of don't know what they want to be. They're labelled to do this, they're forced to do different things, so we pull them away, we take the phones off them, and we just run them through mindset training first. We mix it with adventure, and mindset, adventure, and a physical aspect too, and we put them through different training sessions, and it's pretty much like just to push them outside of their comfort zone, but just to show them that they can be who they want to be as well.
And introduce themselves to something they've never been exposed to. In a way.
We're too busy on our phones doing
nothing.
TikToks, nothings where
literally nothing.
Could be out there learning. Like the biggest thing for me was human connection, and these kids, just before we got on the bus to go to the big hike, they were asking if they can go on their phone to listen to music. And we were like, talk to each other. Like, well, how can you not like talk to each other? When we gave them food packs.
Have a sing along, boys. Here we go.
Yeah, we gave them food packs just before we left, and they were in the back seat like swapping food, and that got them talking to each other. But if we gave them phones, they'd just be texting their mates and
Snapchatting.
It's interesting that I think back when I was working in the Territory, there was a couple of Indigenous blokes there, and like the initiation, like they'd tell us about, like Shadrach was one of the guys, and he was going into initiation, and I was like, mate, it is hardcore. Like the elders take them out middle of nowhere up in like Arnhem Land and stuff. They get circumcised when they're like 18, but he's like, he comes back and he's like, greatest thing ever. Like we learn everything. We were exposed to the elements. We were living off the land. Like we learn all these stories, and like you just don't get that with white people in Australia. In regards to like there's no sort of, it's not initiation, but it's sort of like there's no real big learning experience like that from older people. And I just think, there's not enough, it's not line of respect, but it's like not enough people look up and learn from, older people in our society and what they've been through and like mistakes that have been made. So like this sort of camp exercise you're putting together is allowing more kids to actually get exposed to this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Be like, righto, well, these are mistakes that have been made, but if I work really hard, I'm going to feel a lot better. And if I actually don't have my phone, fucking world's not going to end.
The other thing is also being a mentor as well. Like I think, sometimes parents can say the same things to their kids over and over again, and kids don't want to listen to their parents. And it's not until they hear that same thing from someone else who's like not their parent that they finally listen.
They're like,
yeah. And it's like I was reading Dylan Roos, who's Paul Roos' son, who's an AFL coach, like one of the greatest AFL coaches I think ever. He would always try to lecture his son, Dylan, and I saw a post from Dylan the other day saying that I never listened to my old man. He's one of the best AFL coaches, and I don't believe what he says. I don't have time for it. So Paul Roos organised a couple of mentors for him, and it was not until he sort of heard the same stuff from other mentors that he actually.
Because you probably think it's a bit of a lecture, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and so even just giving a lot of these kids the opportunity, or knowing that there's a few other people out there that potentially they can come and chat to any time if they need to. Which have any kids reached out to you at all since camps?
Yeah, I've had heaps, and that's the reason why we wanted to do it too. We know that kids won't listen to their parents. They don't listen to teachers. I didn't listen to teachers or my parents, so I know what they're going through. But if you mix it with people like Glenn, whose daughters climb Mount Everest, me, I played NRL, that sort of gets the kids' attention straight away.
Yeah, these guys have done stuff.
Whatever I say, they listen now too. And then we've got other people that love what we do. We got my brother who jumps on. We got Taniela, who's playing for the Reds at the moment. We got Casa, who's a business owner. He owns a woodland shop fitting. So we've got different people who are high up.
How does Taniela get in? You must have to open the roller door for him to get in there.
His legs, he's got some tree trunks. Such a good dude. But he's another one that sort of wanted to go back to Tonga because he was sort of over the limelight as well.
Yeah.
We'll have to get him on. Got to get him on here, eh?
Yeah, bloody oath. And I suppose we're pretty much up for time, aren't we, Deco? Yeah, he was giving me the nod before. But what's the aspiration? Like, what's your 12-month goal this year? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so 12 months, footy's second for me. I want to run these bro camps, ALA camps, grow it pretty big. We're looking to get grants from the government, so we're going to find out ways where we can get into that. Find sponsorships too. We're going to level them out, like your bronze, where a business pays $500 to get a kid on, but then you might get a corporate sponsor that's worth 10 grand, but you get to have 5 kids on, and then Glenn will come and speak to you for like a 2-hour session, just figuring out our business plan. And then just going head first.
Awesome. And he's still got aspirations to get back into the NRL?
Yep, definitely, but that's sort of second for me, and I know that if I focus on helping other people, getting these programs up and running now, when I do get back in the NRL, I can still focus on that as well.
Your parents must be bloody proud now. Like, they must kind of think everything you went through was like one of the greatest, fucking speed humps that anyone's ever had to go over, or what?
Yeah, I'm newborn child, they say. So still mum's favourite though.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. That's great, mate. All right, fantastic. Well, really appreciate your time. It's bloody awesome. We'll put all the links up so everyone can check out Bro Chat, the podcast, everything you're doing with Glenn. And, mate, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, awesome. Thanks,
Cheers
boys.
for coming in, bro.
Thanks, mate. Awesome.
How long was that?
If I stop, I'll die.